Delighted to be with you all. I got to join that beautiful total relaxation. Thank you. Today I'm actually in Philadelphia at a friend's place. Um, but normally I live, yes, in Toronto, traditionally known as Toronto. And I guess as we come into our practice, I know that this Sangha has a local group practicing in Phoenix, but there are people zooming in from all over the place. So if we can, I mean, we might have already done this, but I always like to invite us to again ground into our land ancestors, ground into knowing that we are held by this vast, beautiful earth. We are experiencing the gift of life. We are manifestations of the elements. And we are on land that has been stewarded by peoples for millennia, whether they are present today or they've been displaced. Can we take some moments to feel the land supporting us and honor those who have stewarded the lands that hold us right now? And all of that's complexity. And may this time of practice support us to learn to be in better right relationship with ourselves, with the land, with the stewards of the lands that we live upon, through maybe some insights that we find or a bit more capacity to show up for reality fearlessly, compassionately, and engage where we are to minimize suffering, to have greater freedom. That is my intention with the practice. I imagine it's a similar intention for many of you. Yeah, I can feel the land saying, hi, thank you. Thank you. Hello. I don't know what you're noticing, but it's a blessing to be alive in this moment, even with everything that's happening. There is joy in the land to be recognized, to be connected to be known as our ancestor. So today we had this theme of the 5 hindrances, and the subtitle or the subtitle of the talk / title of the day, if it's in the way, it is the way. And as I was preparing in the last few days, I realized another sort of subtitle could be How to Rock a Crying Baby. Because Thai teaches so beautifully that whatever arises, we can meet and hold like a crying baby. And I can tell you, when I started practicing and continued practicing, I thought, oh, it's so beautiful. And as the years went on, the less I understood how to do that. Wait a minute, I don't know how to do this. And this teaching on the 5 hindrances has actually been incredibly helpful for me to find specific ways to rock the crying babies of my life and of the world, through practice, formal practice time, and through informal daily life. So what I want to offer is an overview of the formal teaching, the traditional teachings, some of the traditional antidotes and the similes that the Buddha gave, and then to take a little pause and to check in to see if that sort of technical part makes sense. You might have a few questions, a little back and forth. You can also write into the chat. I won't look at it until the Q&A time, but if it's helpful for you to put like, hey, what's that about? You can put it into the chat too. But I'll pause to check in halfway through. And then I want to give some of how I've taken what, when I first met that sounded like another list. What's the big deal? It's another list. And how I learned to embody it, bring these teachings to life, how they have transformed my practice and my daily life, and offer a few stories, and then some reflections for us to look at together. I know you'll have time for dharma sharing after this talk, but I also want to give time for a little bit of, I think it had said Q&A on the schedule for today. So it may be Q&A, it may be question and reflection, it may be your own reflection, and you don't even have to have a question, but some some community wisdom sharing. Uh, does that make sense as the next hour or so? Okay. And also to say, I'm gonna, if I forget, make sure I do. Remind me. I want to offer a trauma-informed perspective on practicing with the hindrances because it's not always named well, and these can get twisted in ways that aren't helpful and can even be harmful depending upon what's living in our own trauma life, because we all have some traumas, and that's just how it goes. It's okay. We just want to work with reality. So the technical side of things. What we translate as the five hindrances are called nivaranas in Pali and Sanskrit. And that term itself was a standard word that meant like a pot covering, a lid in the Buddhist time. And so this already gives us a little bit of a sense of what hindrances are. They are things that block us, but they don't destroy, they don't corrupt, they don't corrode. So they block concentration, they block well-being time, I might say, but they don't actually get rid of. They don't um, make it so that we never have access to concentration. They get in the way, but they can be gotten around, right? So what we're learning in practicing with the five hindrances is how to relate with something that can cover what we're trying to cultivate so that it's just not covered anymore. Um, And for me, I find that inspiring because I used to think that the hindrances meant that there are things in me that are going to hinder my practice and they're going to be really hard to work with, and I'm just going to have to suffer through them, which was a very different approach to working with these hindrances that left me pretty stuck for a long time. So these things that can cover, that can block us, but they don't actually ruin anything. They get in the way if we don't know how to work with them. And in the moment that we know how, they actually become doorways to concentration, doorways to awakening, doorways to well-being. So briefly, the list is, the first is sensual desire. The second is ill will, or Thai calls it anger, but we could call it aversion, lots of different translations. The third is called sloth and torpor, or drowsiness, and sluggishness. The fourth is traditionally called restlessness and remorse or agitation. And then the fifth is doubt. And so often, if you have studied the Satipatthana Sutta, the four establishments of mindfulness discourse, this list of five is in the section of the objects of mind. The last of the four establishments of mindfulness includes this as one of the lists. But Thich Nhat Hanh doesn't give a lot of energy to it. It is in Awakening of the Heart and other places where you find the commentary on the sutta or sutra. But it's not always gone into detail. But I found it really helpful to go into detail with this. So the sensual desire, in the Dharma, there's a lot that gets said about how bad desire is. And I find that challenging because there's a lot of good things about our desires. But this is specifically like, oh, something pleasant happened, and that instinct of like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And how that will distract us and take us on detours, not just in formal meditation, but in all of our lives. If that reactive, oh, that was pleasant, I want more, grab, 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 doesn't get reflected upon, recognized as an instinct that isn't always going to lead us in a good direction, a lot can happen. And so the Buddha gave us similes for all these. So I'm going to also add that in as we go, with different types of water. So the type of water that the Buddha said, that sensual desire, it's like having dye in a water. It might even make it more beautiful, but it distorts your perception of reality. And so the second one of ill will or anger aversion, it's really works hand in hand. It's the opposite of the desire. It's the I don't like that, push it away. How do I stop it? Make it go away. Yuck. Ah, hate it. And it's also equally reactive. And there are times where it's good to know, like, yeah, that's not helpful. Don't like that. Don't want this in my life. This is a boundary. That's not what we're talking about. This is that impulsive, like push it away in a way that can really distract us because it's not always coming from a grounded place. And so these two of the central desire and the ill will are really just mirrors of each other. Because usually we're like, oh, that was pleasant. I want this, and I don't want that thing. Or that's horrible. I don't want that. I want this instead. So these parts of the mind that are just always looking at like, what do I want? What do I not want? Um, can really distract us, can become an obstacle if we are not aware that that's what's happening. That's what makes it an obstacle or a hindrance. It's because we don't know that's what's going on. And then it just kind of runs the show. And the simile that the Buddha gave for this one is that it's like water that's frothing and bubbling and boiling. And it's so strong. And again, you can't sort of see what's going on. You can't be aware of reality. And the next two are also a bit of a pair, the sloth and torpor or drowsiness. And the two words are tina midha. Um, and tina is almost like to harden, to congeal. It's like a sluggishness. And then midha is sleepiness, laziness, inactivity. There's just not enough energy going on. And I'm sure we all know times where there's not enough energy and how that was a hard thing to live with. Now, this is actually different from a pure physical sleepiness. And there's a lot of value in learning to discern. Oh, wait a minute. Am I actually tired and I need to sleep? Or is this a sluggishness that's about something else? Um, And then it's opposite of restlessness and remorse that udacha kukucha is what it's called in Pali. I love these terms. Udacha kukucha. Udacha is the agitation, excitement, a flurry. The word actually translates to shaking above. So you can imagine like trees on a leaves on a tree in the wind, and they're just like blowing all over the place. There's too much energy or too much activity. And then kukacha is actually more of an inner state, this remorse, this like discontent, maybe there's some guilt and shame. There's our conscious can't settle because like, oh dear, I did that thing. Oh my gosh, am I going to get caught? It roils and ruminates. And so again, we have like not enough energy in the system or too much energy in the system, and how that can block us from concentration. It can be an obstacle from well-being when we don't know that that's what's happening. When we know that's what's happening, it's actually not such a problem. And the images or similes that the Buddha gave is that sloth is like a pool of water overgrown with moss and algae. Can you almost feel that? It's like, ooh. At least that's what happens in my body when I think of that. And then restlessness is a pool of water stirred by wind, and there's just these waves blowing all over the place. So again, like you can't see to the depths. There's so much going on the surface. And then the fifth is doubt. Um, Wikicicca, uh, skeptical doubt. It's not all doubt. And I've thought about this a lot because in Zen teachings, there's a saying that great doubt, great awakening. Small doubt produces small awakening, and no doubt leads to no awakening. So there are some teachers that speak really highly of doubt, but that's the type of doubt that gets you curious. You're like, I don't know what this is. I'm going to get more involved. Or like, I'm going to check it out. That's the type that supports awakening. And that's not what we're talking about in terms of the doubt that is a hindrance. And like I said, I was like, wait a minute, why is this sounding so different? Because I heard really different teachings. So that's how I dug into this. But when it's a hindrance, doubt is suspicious doubt. It's indecision that just keeps you spinning in circles, going nowhere. There's all this thinking of maybe this, maybe that, I don't know about this. And all that you do is spin. It doesn't actually lead you to helpful questioning that discerns something. It leaves you wavering. It might be doubts about the teachings themselves of like, I don't know if this Buddha knew what he was talking about. And I mean, that's fair if you actually do something with it. But if you just spend your whole meditation time going, these instructions, they aren't very good. I don't know. But you don't do anything about it. It becomes an obstacle. Um, it can also be very tied into impatience. Like, come on, shouldn't this be going faster? Um, it's the skepticism that imagine almost like a downward spiral. It brings the mind into cloudiness. It erodes our life energy, not just our practice, formal on the mat practice energy, but it erodes our life energy when we get into this kind of skeptical, critical doubt. And the simile, the image that the Buddha gave for this one is a bowl of muddy water placed in a closet. So like, first of all, it's muddy, and then it's in a closet. Like you just can't even find the bowl, let alone see any depths. There's no insight possible because it just sucks away your life energy. And in a lot of teachings, they would say that doubt is the greatest of the hindrances because it can just take you off the path itself. And so I have some sort of stock phrases that I recognized in myself tend to go along in my mind when these different states are present. And you might see if these resonate for you, or if maybe there are different ones that you might recognize. Um, when sensual desire is present, there's something in me that's always going, what's pleasant? Oh, that's nice. There's this sort of like scanner for the pleasant. And again, it's not that we never want to have pleasant in our lives, but is it known that that's what's happening? Or is it running the show subconsciously or on automatic pilot? Um, with ill will, it's the opposite of like, ugh, some sort of don't like. And yet I found that if I ask, where does it hurt? It will reveal of like, oh yeah, not just I don't like this, but I'm afraid of it. Or concerned about this. It's touching something really old and big. So that helps me get out of the the ill will, which I'll also speak a bit more of later. With sloth and torpor, um, the mind might be saying, oh, this is boring. Again, in formal practice or in our daily lives, or I'm just so tired, but it's not exactly a sleepy tired. It's just like, oh, I'm tired. I'm spaced out. And especially speaking about this in terms of formal meditation, there's usually a silent um, assumption or subtitle to these thoughts that we hear, and therefore I can't meditate. I'm tired, and therefore I can't this and that. Um, so there's something that erode. That's what I mean by erodes our energy. And then restlessness and remorse. Um, I guess my mind will start saying things like, oh, I should be doing something else. How can I fix this? There's something wrong with that. It's like looking for problems is the version that I know very well. But it's not even to fix anything. It's just the looking for things to think about and get tense about. And again, if it's happening during sitting meditation, it's those thoughts of like, oh gosh, did I turn off the stove? Man, I have so much going on. Maybe I should just get up. I need to do things. And therefore I can't meditate. Or therefore I can't stay present with his friend. Therefore, I can't. XYZ. With doubt, as again, in terms of formal meditation, these are the thoughts that go like, maybe this just doesn't work. Maybe it can't work for me. Maybe I just can't do this. Self-doubt is a huge realm where this kind of doubt shows up. And so many of us are just so familiar with living in self-doubt that we don't even recognize it as a hindrance. It's just like, oh yeah, it's reality. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough help. I don't have the right teacher. I don't have the right cushion. Something's wrong with me. It's so, so, so painful that we have to be tender with these teachings and not just, slap some label on, oh, that's doubt. Let it go. Get over it. Sometimes that's helpful. And I want to open up even more later but sometimes that just repeats the voices of the folks who traumatized us. And then that kind of taking on the instructions becomes even further defeat. So we have to be careful how we apply these. But if we can hear that, like, oh, I remember, I guess I'll give a little story already. I remember I was taking a course, sort of a Buddhist refresher course, and we were going over the 5 hindrances, and I'd heard them hundreds of times. And I was like, yeah, that's nice. In fact, I had had a teacher help me because I had thought that in my sitting meditation practice for years and years, I was like, I have so many thoughts. My mind goes so many places. I can barely focus for more than a few breaths most of the time. And this was even when I was a monastic. I had uh, a very hard time with concentration. And so I was positive that the issue was that I had the restlessness and remorse. I had too much energy. And so I was always trying to calm my mind more. And then I talked about this with a teacher one day who said, well, wait a minute, what's the quality of all these thoughts? Are they like trying to get you up and to go do different things? It's like, no, it's like, I don't fall asleep, but it's like kind of spacey, kind of drifting. She's like, listen to the quality that you're telling me about. That's the quality of sleepiness, of dullness. That is not too much energy. That's not enough energy. Even though there's a lot happening, the quality is of sloth and torpor, this sluggishness. And I was like, oh, so you mean I need more energy in my practice, not less? I have spent years and years trying to calm and have less energy in my practice, and then I just space out more. Oh my gosh, it changed everything for me. And I'll talk about the antidotes in a moment, and then we'll do our little check-in. So that was the first time that I just fell in love with this teaching, because as soon as I applied it, I was like, oh my gosh, things are starting to change. I'm not the worst meditator in the world. I am not the most distracted person ever. I just need a little more energy, not less energy. So I had already had that experience. I came to this course. I was learning this list again. I was like, that's great. The hindrances, no problem. I think I understand them. And then the doubt part came up, and I was like, oh yeah, doubt, that's not a big deal for me. Until the teacher said, so check your self-doubt. And I can't remember the exact example she gave, but basically something to the extent of, and maybe the teachings are good, but I don't know if I can really do this. And the way she said it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's in my mind all the time. Maybe I do experience doubt. And then I started looking at my entire life and realized that like doubt is the biggest theme that I have found around my art practice, around my meditation practice, in relational spaces, in all sorts of spaces. But because it was a subtle, like, yeah, I can do this, but I can't do that. A believing in inability is my version that I've seen in a lot of people too. It didn't seem like doubt because I just thought it was real. And that's why doubt is so difficult to work with, because it often doesn't feel like anything. The the desire has a pull. This is how I feel the embodiment of it. The aversion has a like push away. If you tune in, you'll probably feel some pushing in, or you'll see an image of pushing in your mind when it's present. The sloth and torpor, the dullness, like it sinks. The restlessness and remorse, it like almost makes you want to leap out of your body. There's a pretty physical component to all of these mind body states. But doubt sometimes doesn't feel like anything, especially if we're used to it. It's such a companion to self-criticism, to shame, to guilt, um, even to the stronger, spicier, difficult emotions. Um, Doubt can be so familiar that we don't think it's anything. We just think it's real. And it was through seeing it in this list and then reflecting upon it in a class that suddenly it hit me, oh my gosh, this is not reality. This is doubt telling me I can't do this. I'm not good enough at that. And it was incredibly transformative. It's been years and years of practicing noticing doubt, not as reality, but as a mental formation, as a hindrance. Again, this is part of why I get so excited about it. People hear the 5 hindrances, and sometimes they think, oh, that doesn't sound so interested. And I'm like, the 5 hindrances, yeah, I love this because it has been so liberating. And so I want him to touch about the antidotes and then check in. Um, the antidotes, they're traditional antidotes that the Buddha gave because he didn't just give a list to be like, too bad, everything sucks, you just have to live with it, which is what people often think that the noble truths are about, but they're the opposite. They're suffering happens and there's a way out of suffering. It's amazing. So with sensual desire, the traditional antidotes are a mindful recognition, just knowing this is what's happening, remembering impermanence because of all of them, sensual desire is maybe the fastest to move through, for at least for a lot of folks. Protecting the sense door. So like not exposing yourself all the time to dopamine hits because it will just create more of a thirst for dopamine hits, right? Um, and then also some reflection on like, I'm thinking that I want this thing that's going to feel so good. I want that cookie. I want to watch this show. I want to date with that person. Whatever it is. And sometimes just that pause of like, will it actually make me happy? And I was doing that this morning. I was at the market um, with my friends here in Philly and passed a bunch of, I don't know if it was chocolate or something else. And I was like, oh, it looks good. And it wasn't even cruel. It's just, I've gotten into a habit of going, oh, and would that actually make me feel good? No, it'll probably give me a headache. Okay. Oh, yeah, it looks good. There's something tempting in it. And wait a minute. Will it even give what the brain is telling me it will, it, the goodness that my brain thinks it will bring? Wait a minute. Is it even going to do that? Oh, no, it won't. So sometimes we can just think our way through these things. For ill will, I know I'm kind of like rattling through a lot. If anyone is like, wait a minute, I lost that list, I'll just email this to folks so you can just reach out, no problem. Um, and that's why I want to sort of go over this and then we'll like unpack living into it. The ill will, again, the mindful recognition is the most important. Oh, this is ill will. This is anger. This is aversion. This is, I don't like it. That's what's happening. Remembering that it's impermanent. And metta is also an antidote because the I don't like leads the mind towards more of a hatred, cruelty, negativity. And so to shine like, oh, what if I could bring metta to this person that I'm hating as I'm sitting through this meeting? What if I bring even a little bit of kindness to the aversion that I'm feeling to the fact that I'm tired, Um, the kindness is, for me, one of the strongest antidotes. With sloth and torpor, again, recognizing it is so powerful. There's also some pretty physical things that one can do when we're feeling drowsy of pulling the ears sometimes gives energy, or if you interlock your fingers and just sort of swish the hands back and forth, all the like the acupressure points along the fingers are getting stimulated, which just kind of can give a very simple way to give the body a little bit, it's not like go run. It's just let's give a little bit more energy through something very simple. And does that awaken? Or for formal meditation, if you're, a lot of us have our eyes downcast, even if they're closed. And at least for me and a lot of students I've worked with, if you bring your eyes up, even if they're closed, to be equivalent of looking at the horizon or a little bit above the horizon, that can tap into a bit more of the sympathetic nervous system, which gives a little more energy, whereas the downcast can be helpful. If you have the restlessness and remorse, we tap into the parasympathetic nervous system just by the angle of the eyes, even if they're closed. So there's simple things that you can check about just a little bit more energy if you have sloth and remorse, sloth and torpor. Um, and just getting more interested, which sounds so counterintuitive because usually if we're feeling sluggish, the whole point is that it feels like there's no energy. But it's actually possible. And again, I heard this teaching for years and years, and it went in one ear and went out the other ear because I had this very primal kind of reaction of, well, I'm tired, so I can't meditate. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I kind of hate being tired because much of my life, have been very energetic and it's so uncomfortable and unfamiliar. Um, but you can actually get curious. What does the tiredness feel like? What does the sloth and torpor feel like? Is it heavy in the legs? My eyes are kind of burning? What's the burning like? Oh, it's burning more on the left side than the right. Like the moment there's a genuine investigation, which is true for all of these, but especially the sloth and torpor, it can start bringing in energy. And at the very least, it's like, okay, I'm meditating on the sloth and torpor, and if I fall asleep, no big deal. But there's something to work with instead of just having it happen without noticing. One of my favorites. Like, I even get excited about getting sleepy in meditation now because I'm like, oh, I know how to practice with this. It's so cool. With restlessness and remorse, as I said, like doing things that bring messages to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, the eyes a little more downcast, the breathing a little slower, especially the exhale. Even though we don't normally control our breath, but like for a minute or two, try some longer exhales. I could have said this for the previous, if you're really sleepy or just drowsy, a minute or two of longer inhales might give a bit of energy. And what I love with this one too, though, of the restlessness and remorse is to check like, hey, am I actually living in a way that's not matching my integrity? Should I be doing something different? And then go do the different thing. Like if the remorse is actually about something that you're not feeling okay with, change it. Like don't just try to calmly be equanimous with the remorse. Remorse is precious if it's telling us how to live differently to relieve suffering, to hurt people less, to hurt ourselves less, to honor our integrity more. So it's not all just sit and do everything internally. If you're doing body scans, going up the body often gives a little bit more energy, going down gives a little bit less. So you might do downward body scans. If you're out and about moving a little faster might bring a little more energy. Moving a little slower, slow walking meditation. That's my go-to practice when I'm angry because there's a lot of energy going on. And it's not to repress it, but it's to give it the possibility to be known and then dissipate or at least be understood. Not that we have to get rid of anger, but it's hard to experience anger and stay with it. So I find that the slow walking helps me stay with the anger and get curious and kind with it, learn from it, hear what it's trying to get me to do in a good way. And then the doubt. Um, Sometimes when it's really strong, the antidote to doubt, again, if we can notice this is doubt, that's already almost all the work. But then there's also patience. So often doubt is like, but it hasn't happened yet, just a little more patience. Or I give myself a lot of what if questions of like, well, what if it's possible for me to one day do this thing or be able to collect the mind? Or I'm feeling so depressed, but what if it was possible to have a little corner of feeling okay? Just sort of playfully inviting different possibilities, even if the doubt is saying, no, nothing is possible. In a lot of places, the Buddha speaks that an antidote to doubt is to come see for yourself. Ehipassiko. And sometimes that means go ahead, research something. If you're actually going to do something with that I don't know what this means. So like I said, when I heard about these teachings of doubt and I was like, wait a minute, one place it says that doubt's good, another place it says doubt's bad. I investigated. I did research. I talked to folks. I learned something and then it gave me confidence because I did something with it, right? So there's one teacher who likes to say, go ahead, doubt your doubts. Like if the doubt is really strong, can you turn it around and be like, I am the worst practitioner ever? Well, what if that's not even true? Oh, not such a problem. And to get support in with our doubts, it's always helpful to get support, but with doubts in particular, because it can be so debilitating internally, externally. So, um, goodness, time is flying. I'd love to take a little pause to check if these concepts make sense. Let me tell a few stories, and then we also go back to conversation. Um, I know folks who are in this space in person, you can't write into the chat. I'm switching to gallery view and I'm opening up my chat. Here we are. So I want to make space for bigger conversation pretty soon, but I just want to make sure that these 5 concepts are kind of making sense, that they're traditional antidotes. We can feel them in embodied ways. They may sound complicated, but they're also as simple as, is there an inner push or pull or collapse or agitation or full checking out? Does that make sense? That hindrances, they can block our path if we don't know that they're there. But the moment you go, hey, what is it? It becomes a doorway. It becomes practice itself, which is why there's this title. If it's in the way, it is the way. The moment that you get curious about doubt and work with it, it's a doorway to awakening. Practice with the sloth, it gives you energy. The desire, get practicing with it. Oh, enlightenment. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat. I'm not seeing any hands come up. Oh, for sloth and torpor. Yes. Okay, chronic fatigue and illness issues. I want to connect this. Um, this is a great time to do it. We need so much discernment with all of these. And whether it's sleepiness, like lack of sleep that is bringing on fatigue, and or illness, that is going to be different than what we're actually talking about with sloth and torpor, where there isn't a biomedical situation. And for some people, it takes a long time to be able to discern which is which, right? And they're so intertwined. And so part of what I was going to bring in at the end, this idea of, I call it a trauma informed, but it's also like a disability informed perspective on the Dharma, which we don't always get, um, is to be very tender, very patient, take lots of time to discern it, you know, have a bunch of naps, notice like maybe on a lesser pain day, are you still spacing out? Or is it really on like the high pain days? Then it's part of the pain, right? It's um, to really please experiment gently, kindly, patiently. Um, and, you know, I don't live with chronic pain, but a lot of my good friends do, and one that I teach a lot together with, um, who actually has a pretty similar take as I do to the physical pain of like the moment that you can go, oh, it's actually this friend lived with really strong chronic fatigue for years that has shifted a bit. But yeah, practicing with the fatigue itself. Oh, yeah, very gently, not like piercing in to investigate every single aspect, but just to like, okay, the fatigue is here and the pain is there and it's this big and I'm going to sit next to it. That's my mindfulness of, and I'm just going to notice it like once an hour. You know, like we can practice with these things gently. And if with that gentleness, it doesn't like exacerbate the pain or the fatigue, but you can just get a little bit of interest, then yeah, it's the pain and the fatigue, right? But if it's like, oh, I want to pay attention, maybe try some mindfulness, I have some pain, but then it turns into either like big stories or like, okay, I'm kind of all over the place, but for a lot of folks, I think there are good reasons that it's scary to be present with ourselves. I understand far too much about trauma and nervous systems and how humans are to criticize anyone, where if you try to sit down and pay attention to your inner life, something inside of you goes, no way, and sometimes sends you into just falling asleep, right? But that's different than sleepiness. And maybe we need to do therapy, but we don't only need to do therapy. I love therapy. I'm a therapist, but it's not the be all end all. Right? But just to know, okay, there's something inside that's really scary that's sending me to sleep. That's actually already practicing with the hindrances because you're recognizing it instead of criticizing it, trying to make it go away. Is this giving a little bit of a, yeah, gentle patience, but not just go like, oh well, I have pain, I can't do anything. To still engage, but to instead of try harder, try softer, right? Stay more patiently. Use even less energy. Make it simpler. But that doesn't mean give up. That doesn't mean collapse and quit. Okay, so on that note, I will give like a story. I've basically already mentioned my version of a trauma-informed disability justice kind of approach to these practices. Um, I've already named some of them, that there were times of, yeah, the doubt, when I realized that I actually do experience doubt all the time. Didn't know until it was shown to me, like I needed a lot of help with that. And then similarly, I didn't know that I didn't think I could practice with fatigue until I was on a long retreat and heard this teaching over and over again. And I was like, yeah, I practice with that, no problem. And then saw myself getting drowsy. And then my mind say, oh yeah, I'll stop this practice and I'll go do something else. Oh, wait a minute. Is that sleepiness or is that just drowsiness? Oh, I'm assuming that I can't practice with this. And then I started investigating the heavy legs and the burning eyes, and it became fascinating. Like I said, now I celebrate. Once I notice it, if I forget to notice it, then it's still like, oh, I'm so tired, but I want to be awake because I want to practice, or I wanted to, even today, I wanted to hang out with my friends. I'm so excited to be here, and I feel like I'm going to fall asleep. Oh my gosh, what's the matter with me? Why can't my body sleep? I need to go visit my naturopath again. You know, that's the not noticing it. And then the moment of, oh, tiredness, investigate it. be softer with it. Okay, I'm tired, right? This is like recognizing, oh, it's just a hindrance. That's all. You can investigate it. You can be present with it. You can be kind with it. And it changes. What I really want to tell you about was that I have started dating someone in the last half year, and it's wonderful. And having been a monastic for almost a decade, I did not date for a very long time. And I didn't know what it was going to be like. Um, and my practice has really become, instead of sort of taking the more traditional, like dharma thoughts of desire can be a hindrance, desire can be a path to suffering. I've gotten really curious about what kinds of desires are happening. Physical, sexual desires, emotional, connection, wanting to be seen desires, desire to belong. There's so many things that influence how we connect with other people, and they're all in this realm of what gets lumped as desire, but there's so much happening there. And especially as someone in the field of psychotherapy and trauma work, I've gotten to know so much more about the attachment system. You may have heard about, anxious and avoidant attachment, right? And those matter, but I have found it incredibly liberating to just practice mindfulness of my attachment system. Oh, there is something in me that's wanting to connect to a human or to a bunch of humans. And it feels like I'm gonna die if I don't get a text from my sweetie this weekend, Like I wanted a text this morning when I woke up, and there's this burning, and one could just be like, okay, it's desire, know it, investigate it. But because it touches on such tender places in me, it touches upon the death of both my parents, including my dad when I was 8, that all my big stuff eventually gets back to my dad's death when I was a kid. That I've learned to be like, just saying investigate it, something in me is a little too harsh there. I need to be so kind and so tender to be able to investigate and be present and mindful and caring with. Um, that my whole practice around desire these days is like, how kind can I be? How sweet can I be? How understanding can I be of all of the hurt and all the excited little kid parts in me that are showing up in this 47-year-old self who's dated another 47-year-old. And we've both done lots of work, and it's like incredibly mature and also delightful and playful. And yet the context is that this sweetheart of mine has 2 kids that I haven't met yet, which is very wise. And so when my sweeties with their kids, especially on weekends, they don't have much energy even to text, right? And I know this. And yet when I energetically feel that their energy is not present for me, I've had so many periods over the last 6 months of despair coming over me, of like grasping, of anger, these strong emotions that in the Dharma, we're usually just told, oh, it's preferences, it's desire, let it go. It's a cause of suffering. And even that is too harsh. All that works is to be like, oh my gosh, poor sweet crying baby of my attachment system. Poor sweet 8-year-old feeling abandoned again. Of course you feel like this. Hi, honey. How can I love you more? um, Once I know that's what's happening. And sometimes it takes days to find but most of the time I'm getting faster at recognizing. I feel like I'm gonna die. I know I'm not gonna die, but oh my God, my brain is screaming. Like it's so intense. It's so tender. It's so hard. It's so like, I hate you. I can't believe you didn't leave me a message this morning. Right? Like it's all over the place. And I see why monastics, we take on a celibate path, it takes a lot of drama out of our lives. It supports that collectedness. But then I also didn't practice with this part of myself for years. It really got siloed. And it's delightful to open it back up now. And even like 3 weeks ago, I was having this wave of like, I didn't get a message for a day and a half. I'm losing it. I'm not okay. And it actually really spun me down into this place I don't know if I've ever touched before. I was in such a despair. And my brain was saying, come on, you know what's going on. You know, this isn't personal. You know that this is fine. But it was triggering all the big hurt stuff. And in fact, I think it actually showed me the part of my young self that has been horrifically depressed ever since my dad's death. But my like, hey, I can find something better parts were always louder. So I didn't even know it was there. And as I was working with this, practicing with it, just taking taking the depressed little kid on some walking meditations, suddenly the hindrances popped in. I was like, oh, I'm afraid to feel this depth of despair, maybe on a semi-regular basis. Because a part of me is like, it's like on a meditation, like, I can't, if I feel this, I can't meditate. If I feel this, I can't be in a relationship. If I feel this amount of pain sometimes, I can't, dot, dot, dot. And then the hindrance practices, I was like, oh, I'm afraid of feeling something. What if this is just a hindrance? I'm like, all I need to do is not be afraid of feeling how intense this is. Because really, that's at the heart of the hindrances. We're afraid that the desire will like burn us. We're afraid that the aversion will be so unpleasant that we'll never survive. You know, the young parts. And so this part of me was like, oh, this feels so bad. I'm never going to be able to survive this. And oh, wait a minute. I've learned to survive almost everything else that I've faced. And the spirit of the hindrances, the spirit of like, oh, know that that's what's happening. Be so, 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 so kind. That doesn't mean you have to believe it. Oh, what am I afraid of feeling? Oh, it's the fear of feeling it that's worse than the feeling itself. You know, basic dharma, but takes lifetimes. And then, I mean, it's not that this will never come up again, but I can't even tell you more because I want to have some time to talk. If there's time to talk, I don't know if I've talked too long. Um, I'm so passionate about this because when we know, when it helps us to release the fear of feeling whatever seems too hard to feel, the liberation is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And sometimes really, really tiny. You know, not to judge ourselves. But my little phrase is like, oh, what if it's okay to feel this too? What if this isn't a problem? What if it's not in the way it is the way? So thank you for your kind listening. I'm seeing faces nod and um, I don't know. Oh, I'm seeing one question. So if you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat. And if you want to speak, I don't know how much time we have, Logan, or anyone else. If you want to let us know our time, um, that'd be great because I think I've lost track.
Yeah, we're coming to the point where we'll start to shift into Dharma sharing, but we have a full hour set aside for Dharma sharing, and it's not a super large group. So I think we could easily spend another 5 to 10, maybe 15
Okay.
minutes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'll look at this first one that's in the chat, and then if you want to write anything else or get ready to raise a hand, and um, maybe in the hall if someone wants to share or ask.
Yeah, we have a microphone set up in
Okay,
the center of the room. So if
great.
somebody would like to come up and ask a question, we can have them stand up in front of the mic here.
Thank you. For aversion, can you elaborate more on antidotes? I get into judgments of others and then self-judgment for my behavior for thinking this way. Yes, that's so familiar for me and for many others. Um, like being aware, this is judgment, and the metta, the kindness, are the biggest ones. Let me just check if I missed anything. Um, remembering that it's impermanent, having some patience. But I tend to jump to the metta for everything. When in doubt, start with metta, end with metta, metta in the middle. So many of us are so overly conditioned to be critical, and especially with judgments, it's like it's the first, middle, and last practice. And so it can be, it can really depend, because some folks, when have a really strong experiencing frequent experience of judgments and self-judgment, um, metta, like the phrases of like, may you be well, may you be happy, may just feel so false. It can seem like, oh, that doesn't work. But there's thousands of ways to practice kindness. I sometimes think of it like sunshine, and it's not even my sunshine. Like, what if someone else's sunshine of kindness can shine on that person that I can't stand? Like that's one way to practice metta. But the fact that you're noticing the connection between judgment of others and self-judgment, I think, is probably the most important thing here, because what we do to others is what we do to ourselves. And if you practice with one, it will affect both. I find for most folks, it's the self-judgment that's really hard, but the most powerful. Like if you can start having kindness towards your own self-judgment and understanding the self-judgment, it tends to ripple out and just automatically start softening with others. But you can start with others, or you could do both. And it's really worthwhile to spend time experimenting. Okay, so the traditional phrases of may you be happy, may you be free, may you be safe, may you be well. For some folks, repeating those is really helpful, and others it feels fake. Find your own words. But for some, words aren't even helpful. So an image like sunlight, or a friend and I developed a practice where we visualize Avalokiteshvara, putting one hand on our own hearts to receive metta from Avalokiteshvara, or the Bodhisattva of compassion, and then to let Avalokiteshvara's hands offer compassion to others. It's like sometimes it's a little too much for me to offer kindness to others. I'll invite Kuan Yin or Avalokiteshvara. I'll invite the Buddha. I'll invite Tai to be compassionate towards that person that I can't stand. Like anything that leans towards some kindness that is possible. I visualize people as kids. I visualize myself as a kid. Like, okay, yeah, their 5-year-old self is screaming right now and being a real jerk. But when I imagine them as a 5-year-old, okay, they're 5. I can handle it. So to get really creative with how you find some kindness towards the judgment. And I trust that you can find something that will work for you. And start gently and let it grow. I hope that's helpful. Yeah. About judgment, I'm confused on what an antidote to my judgment that certain political people or policies are inhumane might be. How do I not have judgment about genocide, oppression, etc., or is this even desirable? Oh, such a great question. Discernment is not a problem. The Buddha had very clear opinion, or not, I mean, call them opinions. The Buddha tried to stop war. The Buddha told political leaders, like, hey, you're being a jerk, please stop it. Like, sometimes he was successful and sometimes he wasn't. But the Buddha did not try to be neutral about all things. The judgment, especially in the ill will hindrance, is that like, I don't like it. And it irritates us from the inside. It eats at us, right? And I would never want to say like there's a problem about feeling eaten up by genocide happening in the world. Like that means that we're not numb, right? But if it feels imbalanced, like I just, I can't sleep. All that I can do is keep looking at the news and scrolling for hours a day, and it's consuming us, and it's not helping us to do something about the situation. That's where it gets overboard. But I think what I found also is that when we've really done the inner work of like, what are my inner judgments, it starts to clarify what's discernment about, like, that's not okay. Whether it's in how someone's treating me, how I treat myself, what's happening politically. It doesn't, it's a clarity. We're like in our strong spine. We're in touch with our gut muscles. It's very embodied when it's like, nope, that's not okay. There's nothing shaking about it. It's like, oh, I hate that person. They're just such a jerk. And, or I can't believe that's happening. It's so awful. And you're just like, it's roiling and it doesn't go anywhere and it leaves you unsteady. It eats all your energy so you can't do anything. Or I'm so awful. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that horrible thing. And but it doesn't like give you that, next time I'm going to try this. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe I let myself be treated that way. It feels awful. So even though I'm terrified to say no, stop to my boss or whatever, I think I have to try that. That's the helpful judgment, discernment. And this is a great question because in the sutras, oh, I know that I know the Sanskrit and the Pali, but I'm forgetting it right now. There are different terms for like the discernment that is wise that gets translated as judgment, and it's a positive thing, versus this is the like ill will, aversion, hatred. Bhayapada is the term. That's different from, oh, it starts with V. In any case, there's a type of judgment that's the discernment, that's a wisdom, which is different from vengefulness, hostility, resentment. That's the type of aversion that is a hindrance that we can call judgment. It's a difference. They're quite different from the experience on the inside. Viveka. Yeah, thank you, Ed. Yeah. Any of people's own experiences practicing with hindrances or curiosities, as well as questions. Going once. Going twice. All right. Another written one. I've been working with my inner child a lot recently and finally named her. I named her Grace or Gracie because that's what she and I both need from each other. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I'm imagining that's similar to what I've called as like when we recognize the hindrances for what they are and practice with them, they become doorways, or they become like our these inner kids become opportunities for grace, invitations for grace, invitations for transformation. Like, so amazing when we know, like, oh, this is what's going on. Let's work with it. Let's play with this. Let's investigate. Let's explore, versus they're running the show subconsciously. Then that's how we get stuck. But how beautiful. Yeah, thank you, thank you. One more. With my judgment towards others' behavior, I found that equanimity phrases, yeah, can be super helpful, especially I care about you and you walk your own path. Beautiful, thank you.